You look at a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, and your brain just shuts off. Those big round eyes, the silky ears, that whole soft little face. It's like someone designed a dog specifically to make you say, I need that one. And honestly, someone kinda did. That's the problem. Centuries of breeding went into perfecting that look, that temperament, that soft, sweet, perpetual puppy thing they do. And the cost of getting all of that right was basically everything under the hood. Heart disease, neurological conditions, eye problems, joint issues. And not when they're old. I'm talking young dogs, sometimes puppies. A lot of people who fall in love with a Cavalier honestly don't know what they're walking into. And look, I'm not being condescending. The information is out there, sure, but it's buried under 10,000 Instagram posts of Cavaliers and bow ties looking adorable, which, fair, they are adorable. That was literally the point of the breeding program. But the genetics here aren't a gamble. They're closer to an itinerary. You get this dog, and certain things are probably going to happen. The question isn't really if, it's when and how bad. And that's what nobody mentions at the breeder, or at the shelter, or on the adoption page with the little heart emoji next to looking for my forever home. The face does all the selling. The stuff behind it, that stays in the vet's file. Mitral valve disease, MVD. If you've spent any time reading about Cavaliers, you've seen those 3 letters, probably described as a common health concern or a breed predisposition, which, okay, technically true, but calling it that is like calling a flood a moisture event. By age 5, roughly half of all Cavaliers have a detectable heart murmur. By 10, close to 100%. Not at risk for, actually have one. Calling that a predisposition feels kind of generous. And the murmur itself is, sorry, I should explain this part. In most breeds, a heart murmur is something your vet catches, you monitor it, maybe it stays minor forever. With Cavaliers, the murmur is more like chapter 1. It shows up, the valve keeps degenerating, heart enlarges, fluid builds, and at some point you're managing congestive heart failure in a dog that's 6, maybe 7. I've read breeders who say, well, every breed has something. And sure, Goldens get cancer at scary rates, German Shepherds, the hips. But with those breeds, you're talking about probability, odds. With Cavaliers and MVD, the odds are basically 1. It's just a question of when. And nobody with a financial stake in selling these puppies is racing to change that. Breeding away from MVD would take generations of careful, profit-killing work. So instead, you get health guarantees that cover the first year or 2, which, by the way, is before most murmurs even show up. Funny how that works. King Charles II, yeah, that King Charles, supposedly loved these dogs so much, he issued a decree saying they couldn't be banned from any public place. That's the origin story. Not bred to hunt, not bred to guard, bred to sit on a royal lap and never leave the room. So when your Cavalier loses it the second you walk out the front door, what did you expect? 400 years of selective pressure went into making a dog that needs to be on you, near you, touching you at all times. Of course it falls apart when you disappear. And the separation anxiety you see in Cavaliers hits different from what you get in a lab or a husky. Those dogs get bored, chew stuff, knock the trash over. Cavaliers get genuinely distressed. Cortisol through the roof, panting, pacing, won't eat till you're back. Their whole genetic purpose is being near a person. Take that away, and the dog kind of doesn't know what to do with itself. I think people hear separation anxiety and assume it's a training problem. Crate train early enough, desensitize gradually, problem solved. And you can make it better, yeah.
But you're pushing against centuries of breeding that selected specifically for dogs who couldn't stand being alone. You can take the edge off. The core of it isn't going anywhere. Which means, and nobody really says this, a Cavalier is a rough pick for anyone working full-time outside the home. Sweetest dog you'll ever meet, and it's quietly coming undone every single day you leave. You look at a Cavalier's ears, and yeah, they're beautiful. Long, silky, flowing, very photogenic. Also, basically a petri dish. I mean, think about it. Those ears hang low enough to drag through a water bowl. They're heavy, they sit tight against the head, and they seal off the ear canal like a lid on a jar. No air gets in. Moisture just sits there, warmth builds up, and bacteria? Bacteria absolutely love that setup. So you end up with a dog that gets ear infections the way some people get colds, regularly, predictably, over and over. And I'm not talking about like a mild irritation that clears up with some drops. I mean full-on, deep canal infections that make the dog shake its head constantly, scratch until the skin's raw, sometimes lose hearing if it goes untreated long enough. Most Cavalier owners figure this out within the first year. You're at the vet, they look in the ear, they go, yep, infection. You treat it. 3 weeks later, same ear. 6 weeks after that, same thing again. It becomes this cycle you just manage. You don't fix it. You can't really fix it because the ears are the ears. The structure is the problem. Nobody told you that going in, though. The breed profiles mention long, well-feathered ears, like it's a selling point. What they should probably add is budget for eardrops. The Cavalier was actually supposed to be the fix. Back in the 1920s, a guy named Roswell Eldridge looked at old paintings from the Stuart court, the Spaniels Charles II kept around, and noticed they had longer muzzles, flatter skulls, more proportional heads than the smushed-faced toy Spaniels of his era. So he put up prize money at Crufts. Bring back the old look, breed healthier dogs. And it kinda worked, for a while. The Cavalier King Charles Spaniel became its own breed. But then the show ring got hold of it and started nudging the skull rounder, the eyes bigger, the muzzle a little shorter. Not pug flat, but shorter than it probably should be. And the kennel clubs wrote that look into the standard. Domed skull, large, round, dark eyes. That whole baby face thing. But you can't reshape a skull without consequences. The brain doesn't get smaller just because you made the container more compact. So you get this condition called syringomyelia. The back of the skull is basically too tight for the cerebellum, and cerebrospinal fluid gets forced down into the spinal cord. It's painful, sometimes agonizingly so. And MRI studies have found the underlying malformation in something like 70% of Cavaliers. 70. A breed that was literally created to undo one set of bad decisions got handed a different set because the show ring couldn't leave well enough alone. "50%. That's roughly how many Cavaliers have a detectable heart murmur by age 5. 50%. And by 10, close to all of them. The condition's called mitral valve disease, MVD. In most breeds, it's an old dog thing. Shows up at 11, 12, maybe 13. In Cavaliers, it shows up at 3, 4, sometimes younger. The valve between the left chambers of the heart starts degenerating, doesn't close right. Blood leaks backwards, and the heart works harder and harder to compensate. Eventually, it can't. And this isn't some rare genetic bad luck where your particular dog drew the short straw. This is the breed. The prevalence is so high that researchers basically treat it as inevitable. You don't ask if your Cavalier gets heart disease. You ask when. What gets me is how quietly it starts. A soft murmur the vet catches at a routine checkup. Grade 1 out of 6. Dog seems totally fine. Runs around, eats well, acts happy. You think, okay, we'll keep an eye on it. But that murmur doesn't stay at grade 1. It progresses. And by the time the dog starts coughing, getting winded on walks, breathing a little heavier at night, you're already pretty deep into it. 5 years old. For most dogs, that's barely middle age. For a Cavalier, it's kind of where the clock starts running out. And I think that's the part that breaks people. You know how some dogs have that instinct? That thing where a car's coming and they flinch, they pull back, they at least hesitate? Cavaliers didn't get that software update. I mean, they genuinely did not. This is a dog that will see a moving vehicle and trot toward it like it's a friend they haven't met yet. And it's not just cars. It's bikes, skateboards, a plastic bag blowing across the street. Oh, that's interesting. Let me go investigate with my face. There's no threat assessment happening. None. The part of the brain that's supposed to go, hey, that thing is big and fast and could kill me, in a Cavalier, that part is apparently on permanent vacation. Which, I mean, it makes sense if you think about what this breed was designed for. Centuries of palace life, sitting on royal laps, being carried around by aristocrats. Nobody was selecting for, can this dog survive crossing a road? They were selecting for, will this dog sit still while a duchess pets it? And they nailed that. They absolutely nailed it. But the trade-off is a dog with zero self-preservation instinct. So you end up being the survival instinct. You're the one scanning for danger. Every walk, every open door, every yard without a fence. You're doing the risk assessment that this dog will never, ever do for itself. It's exhausting, honestly, and it never stops. This one's rough. I'm gonna be honest. This is probably the hardest thing about Cavaliers that most people don't know about until it's too late. It's called syringomyelia, SM. And the short version is, the back of the skull is too small. Literally too small for the brain. The cerebellum gets crowded, blocks the normal flow of spinal fluid, and that fluid starts building up in cavities along the spinal cord. It's painful. We're talking screaming level pain in some dogs. Phantom scratching at the air near their neck and ears. Sensitivity so bad they can't wear a collar. And here's the part that kind of makes you sick. Studies have found that somewhere around 70% of Cavaliers show signs of the malformation on MRI. 70. Not a rare defect, not a bad luck thing. A breed-wide structural problem that got baked in because nobody was scanning skulls. They were judging coat color and ear length. Some dogs live with mild versions and you'd never know. Others are in constant, grinding discomfort by age 3. There's medication, surgery sometimes, though it's expensive and not always a fix. But the fact that this breed, this sweet, gentle, people-obsessed breed, was basically built with a skull that doesn't fit its own brain, that's not bad luck. That's a design flaw that got ignored for generations because the dog still looked right on the outside. Cavaliers in hot weather do not mix. And I think a lot of people underestimate how serious this actually is, because they look at a Cavalier and think, okay, it's not a pug, it's not a bulldog, the face isn't that flat. How bad can it be? Bad. Pretty bad, actually. Their muzzles are shorter than you'd guess just from looking. Not smashed in short, but enough that their airways are narrower than, say, a Beagle's or a Cocker Spaniel's. And that means their cooling system, which in dogs is basically just panting, doesn't work as efficiently as it should. They can't move air fast enough to dump heat. Now layer on the heart problems this breed is already prone to.
A dog that's struggling to cool down and has a heart that's working harder than it should, that's a bad combination on an 85-degree day. A really bad one. And they won't tell you. That's the kicker. Well, not the kicker, but the thing people miss. Cavaliers are so eager to be with you, so desperate to keep up, that they'll push through the discomfort. They'll keep walking, keep playing, keep lying in the sun next to you because that's where you are. By the time they're showing obvious signs of overheating, heavy panting, glazed eyes, stumbling, you're already in emergency territory. You have to be the one watching. They sure as hell won't pace themselves. Nobody tells you the purchase price is the cheap part. A Cavalier from a decent breeder runs you, $1,500, $2,000? And people treat that like the big financial hit. It's not. It's the deposit on a dog that's basically pre-registered in the healthcare system. Cardiac screenings alone, you're supposed to get those yearly. An MRI for syringomyelia, if your vet even knows to check for it, runs $800 to $1,500. And that's before anything is actually wrong. That's just maintenance. Then something goes wrong. And with Cavaliers, something almost always goes wrong. Heart meds can hit $200, $300 a month. Eye conditions, chronic ear infections, not the one-and-done kind, patella issues, and you're stacking all of it because this breed doesn't usually get one thing. They collect diagnoses. People quote annual vet costs at $3,000, $4,000, and those are the ones who caught stuff early. The ones who didn't? Surgery, emergency visits, specialist referrals 2 hours away because the local vet doesn't have the equipment. And pet insurance? Sure, get it. But good luck finding a policy that doesn't exclude half the stuff Cavaliers are genetically prone to. A lot of companies see Cavalier King Charles Spaniel on the application and just adjust. You're not sneaking anything past the underwriters. The word is right there in the name, and nobody thinks about it. Spaniel. That means something. These dogs were bred to flush birds out of hedgerows, to chase, to bolt after small, fast-moving things. That's what Spaniels do. That's the whole job description. But people see a Cavalier curled up on a cushion in some Instagram reel and think, lapdog, little plush toy that breathes. And yeah, they'll do that. They will absolutely melt into your couch for 3 hours straight. But then a squirrel twitches in the yard and that dog is gone. Like gone. Gyro recall, brain completely offline. This catches people off guard because nothing about the way Cavaliers get sold, and I mean, let's be honest, breeding at this point is marketing, nothing about it says this dog will bolt into traffic chasing a pigeon, but they will. The recall problem is real. You can train a lot of breeds to come back even mid-excitement. Cavaliers, I mean, you can try. Some get there, but when that Spaniel drive kicks in, it's like the training just evaporates. They're not being defiant. Their brain is literally somewhere else, following the bird, following whatever moved. Off-leash parks are a whole conversation with this breed. A lot of Cavalier people just don't do them. And honestly, that's probably smart. A Cavalier starts coughing at night, age 6, age 7, and the owner figures, okay, he's slowing down, getting older. Dogs cough, not a big deal. Except with this breed, that cough is almost never just aging. It's mitral valve disease, MVD, and the numbers are honestly kind of wild. Roughly half of all Cavaliers have a detectable heart murmur by age 5. By 10, it's almost universal. We're not talking about a risk you might get unlucky with. It's more like a schedule. And the frustrating part is that early MVD doesn't look like heart failure.
It looks like a dog who's kinda tired, gets winded on walks a little sooner, maybe coughs after drinking water, stuff you'd shrug off for any dog past middle age. So people shrug it off for months, sometimes years. By the time the diagnosis lands, a lot of these dogs are already in moderate to advanced stages. And at that point, you're just managing it. Daily meds, fluid monitoring, shorter walks. The dog that used to tear around the backyard is now basically on a maintenance protocol for the rest of its life. What gets me is that early detection actually matters. A murmur caught at grade 2 versus grade 4, that's potentially years of better quality life. But it takes a vet who checks with a stethoscope every single visit, and an owner who doesn't just assume the cough is a cough. You're at the park, your Cavalier's running around, having the time of its life, and then it just drops. Legs go stiff, the whole back end locks up like someone hit a switch. And then, maybe 10 seconds later, maybe 30, the dog gets up and acts like nothing happened. That's episodic falling syndrome. And if you haven't heard of it, honestly, most people outside the breed haven't. It's a muscle disorder. The muscles basically hypercontract during exercise or excitement, and the dog can't override it. Can't walk, can't stand, sometimes can't even move its head. It looks like a seizure. It's not a seizure, but good luck telling that to the owner watching it happen for the first time. The weird part? The dog stays fully conscious, eyes open, alert, just stuck, which is almost worse in a way, because you're looking at your dog and your dog is looking at you, and neither of you can do anything about it. It's genetic, recessive gene, so both parents have to carry it. And because the Cavalier gene pool is, well, I'll get into that. The carrier rate is not small. There's a DNA test for it now, which helps. But there's a test, and breeders consistently use the test are two very different sentences. You kinda have to ask, and then ask again, and maybe ask to see the results. You'll see a Cavalier walking down the street, and it'll just mid-stride start scratching at its neck, except the paw doesn't actually touch. It's scratching at the air, this weird, rhythmic, kind of haunting little motion, and the dog does it over and over. That's called phantom scratching, and it's one of the telltale signs of syringomyelia, which is, okay, let me back up. Syringomyelia is a condition where fluid-filled cavities form inside the spinal cord, and the reason it happens so often in Cavaliers is because their skulls are frankly too small for their brains. The brain gets crowded, pushes down into the spinal canal, blocks the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, and that fluid starts pooling where it shouldn't. The technical term for the skull part is Chiari-like malformation, but the scratching, that's what owners notice first. And the numbers are rough. Some studies put the rate of syringomyelia in Cavaliers at over 70% by age 6. 70. Not all of them show symptoms, sure, but a lot do. Pain, sensitivity around the head and neck, yelping for no obvious reason. Some dogs can't wear a collar anymore. Some can't be touched on certain parts of their body. The thing that gets me is how many people buy a Cavalier and genuinely don't know this exists. Nobody told them. The breeder didn't mention it. The breed website said gentle companion dog and left it at that. The Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, as we know it, basically didn't exist until the 1920s. There were old-type spaniels in paintings, the ones with the longer noses, the flatter heads, but the breed had been crossed into the shorter-faced King Charles Spaniel over centuries. And then a guy named Roswell Eldridge put up price money at Crufts year after year for anyone who could produce dogs that looked like the old paintings. Eventually, a few breeders did. But here's the problem. They started with not many dogs, like a genuinely tiny number. Some estimates put the founding population at 6, maybe fewer. And from that handful, every single Cavalier King Charles Spaniel alive today descends. 6 dogs. That's it. That's the entire genetic foundation of a breed that now has, hundreds of thousands of registered dogs worldwide. And you can't outrun that math. You just can't. Every generation, you're reshuffling the same limited deck. And the bad cards, the genes for MBD, for syringomyelia, for episodic falling, they're in the deck. They were in the deck from the start. There have been efforts to widen the gene pool, outcrossing programs mostly, but they're slow, they're controversial, and a lot of breed clubs resist them because the puppies don't look right for a generation or two. So the bottleneck just stays. 60+ years of inbreeding baked into the breed's DNA, and nobody's figured out how to unbake it. You reach down to scratch behind their ears. Normal thing, right? And they scream. Not a whimper, a full yelp. And you're standing there going, what did I just do? Probably nothing. The problem isn't your hand. The problem is their skull. Cavaliers have this condition called syringomyelia. And honestly, once you understand what it actually is, it kind of changes how you see the whole breed. Basically, the back of the skull is too small for the brain. Like, literally too small. The brain gets pushed down through the opening at the base of the skull, blocks the flow of spinal fluid, and that fluid starts forming these cavities, these pockets inside the spinal cord itself. And the numbers are rough. Some studies put it at over 70% of Cavaliers having the skull malformation. 70. Not all of them develop symptoms, but a scary number do. And one of the big ones is this thing called phantom scratching. The dog keeps reaching back towards its neck or ear, but never actually makes contact, just pawing at nothing, over and over. The worst part, I think, is that a lot of owners miss it early. They figure the dog's being dramatic, sensitive, a little weird. Meanwhile, there's pressure building inside the spinal cord that's causing real, actual pain every time you touch their neck. A burglar breaks into your house at 2 a.m., your Cavalier wakes up, trots over to him, and rolls onto its back for belly rubs. I'm barely even exaggerating. These dogs have zero protective instinct. Zero. They love everyone. The mailman, the plumber, the stranger who just walked in through your unlocked door. Doesn't matter. Tail's going, belly's out, please pet me. And look, that's kind of the whole breed right there. They were literally bred to be lapdogs for British royalty. King Charles II, yeah, the guy the breed is named after, reportedly brought his spaniels into council meetings, into parliament. The entire point of the dog was to be sweet and agreeable. Nobody was selecting for alerts you when someone breaks in. But that friendliness goes deeper than you'd think. Way deeper. It's hardwired. Cavaliers bond hard, and they bond with pretty much anyone who gives them 2 seconds of attention. Sounds charming, until you realize it also means they fall apart when you leave. Separation anxiety in this breed is, it's bad, really bad. Some of them can't handle being alone for 20 minutes. And people call that spoiled, clingy, but that kind of misses the point. That's what 200 years of selective breeding did to their nervous system. You bred for maximum attachment. You got maximum attachment. All of it. Those big, round Cavalier eyes. Everybody talks about them. So expressive, so soulful. Yeah, and so prone to going wrong. Cavaliers are genetically loaded for eye problems, and I mean loaded. Dry eye is one of the big ones, keratoconjunctivitis sicca, if you want to get technical, where the tear glands basically stop producing enough moisture. The surface of the eye dries out, gets inflamed, gets painful, and the dog can't exactly tell you that's happening. They just squint more, paw at their face. You think it's cute.
Then there's cataracts, pretty common in the breed, and they can show up young, like 2 or 3 years old young, not senior dog stuff. And cherry eye, where the gland behind the third eyelid kind of pops out and you get this red lump in the corner of the eye, looks way scarier than it usually is, but still, it's not nothing. And I think what bugs me about all this is these are the eyes everyone falls in love with, right? The soft gaze, the adoring look. That's the whole image of the breed. But behind that look, there's a pretty long list of things quietly breaking down. Corneal ulcers, retinal problems, progressive stuff that chips away at their vision so slowly that most owners don't notice until it's already far along. You're staring into those eyes thinking they adore you, and they do. They're just struggling to see you clearly. "70%. That's the number that keeps showing up in the research on Chiari-like malformation in Cavaliers. 70% by age 6, right? Cerebrospinal fluid gets blocked, and these fluid-filled cavities, syrinxes, start forming in the spinal cord. That's syringomyelia, and it hurts constantly. You've probably seen the phantom scratching. The dog reaches toward its ear or neck and just scratches at nothing, doesn't make contact. People think it's cute, some little quirk, but that's nerve pain. The dog is reacting to a sensation it can't get rid of. And here's what gets me. A lot of these dogs never get diagnosed because they adapt. The tail keeps wagging, they're still climbing into your lap like nothing's wrong. So you assume nothing is wrong. But MRI studies on totally symptom-free Cavaliers keep finding the malformation anyway. Dogs just walking around with skulls that don't fit their own brains. There's no cure. You manage it. Pain meds, sometimes surgery, which doesn't always work, by the way. Sometimes you're just keeping the dog comfortable. That's the ceiling. Comfortable. And the dog can't tell you how bad it actually is. You're guessing. Every day, you're guessing. The word Spaniel comes from Old French, Espagnol, basically Spanish dog, and these were hunting dogs, flushing dogs. Their whole job was to crash into underbrush and scare birds into the air so the hunter could take the shot. That's what the breed was built for, not sitting on a silk cushion. But somewhere along the way, I think the 20th century really did it. The Cavalier got rebranded. Lapdog, companion breed. Great for apartments, great for seniors. And look, they are good companions. I'm not arguing that. But people forget there's a spaniel in there, an actual working spaniel with actual prey drive. So you get this dog, and it's sweet, and it's gentle, and it wants to cuddle, and then a squirrel crosses the yard, and something just switches on. The eyes lock, the body drops low, and the dog is gone. Full sprint, zero recall, completely deaf to you. That hunting instinct is still in there, fully intact, just waiting for a trigger. And I think the real struggle is the mismatch. People get a Cavalier expecting basically a stuffed animal that breathes. Then they're confused when it needs real exercise, when it gets bored and starts chewing stuff because nobody took it for a proper walk in 3 days. The breed standard literally says sporting. Everybody just kind of ignores that part. They see the big eyes and the floppy ears and think, oh, easy dog. It's a patient dog, though, and patient and easy are really different things.
You want to know how a breed's health really stacks up? Don't ask a breeder. Don't even ask a vet. Ask an insurance company. Because they don't have feelings about it. They've just got actuarial tables. And the actuarial tables on Cavalier King Charles Spaniels are grim. Mitral valve disease. That's the big one. It's a degenerative heart condition, and it hits Cavaliers earlier and harder than basically any other breed. Some studies say over 50% have a heart murmur by age 5. By age 10, almost all of them. And I don't mean old age wear and tear. These are hearts that start failing while the dog is still, by any other measure, young. Then you've got syringomyelia on top of that. Eye problems, cataracts, retinal stuff, dry eye, hip and knee issues. Stack it all together, and you're looking at a breed where the average claim is way higher than normal. So what happens? Premiums go up, way up. Some companies won't cover them at all. Others will, but with exclusions for cardiac and neurological conditions, which, that's basically the whole risk profile right there. You're paying for coverage that specifically won't help with the things your dog is most likely to need. And nobody mentions this at the breeders. You don't get handed a spreadsheet that says, hey, budget an extra few $1,000s a year just for medical. But that's the reality. The insurance companies already know. They've done the math. Everybody talks about the heart stuff. MVD, the murmurs, the ticking clock. Yeah, we'll get to that. But the joint problems, nobody brings those up. And they should. Cavaliers get hip dysplasia at rates that are honestly kind of absurd for a dog this size. We're talking 13, maybe 18 pounds. That's a small dog. Hip dysplasia is supposed to be a big dog problem. Labs, German Shepherds, Rottweilers. But Cavaliers show up on the list, and not near the bottom. Then there's patellar luxation. Their kneecap basically slides out of the groove it's supposed to sit in. Sometimes it pops back on its own. Other times, you're looking at surgery. And that surgery runs, $1,500 to $3,000 per knee. So if both go, and sometimes both go, double it. But the real thing nobody tells you, it's not one dramatic bill. It's the slow bleed. Annual x-rays, joint supplements you're not totally sure are doing anything, but you keep buying anyway because what else are you going to do? Anti-inflammatory meds when they're limping a little more than usual, follow-up visits where the vet says, let's just monitor it, and you still walk out $150 lighter. It never closes. The tab just stays open, and it adds up in a way that kind of sneaks up on you. Norway, in 2022, basically said, look, we can't keep doing this. An Oslo court ruled that breeding Cavalier King Charles Spaniels violated the country's animal welfare laws. Full stop. Not breed them more carefully. Not here are some new guidelines. The court said the act of breeding them, as they currently exist, causes suffering. And, they're not wrong. When you look at the health data, the rates of MVD, syringomyelia, the joint stuff we just talked about, it's pretty hard to argue this is a breed that's doing fine. The court looked at the same numbers any vet could pull up and basically went, yeah, this is inhumane. Now, did it actually stop breeding? Not really. The ruling got challenged, got complicated, turned into the kind of legal back and forth that, you can probably guess how that goes. Breeders pushed back, the kennel clubs pushed back harder, and the whole thing ended up being more of a warning shot than an actual ban that stuck. But the fact that a court in a developed country looked at this breed and said, breeding this dog is a form of animal cruelty, that should give you pause. That's not some activist group posting on social media. That's a judge in a courtroom, on the record. A normal dog, Even a really friendly one has some kind of filter. They meet a stranger and there's a beat, a sniff, a little pause, a quick "who are you?" before they decide this person's okay. Cavaliers skip all of that completely. They meet someone new and it's immediately tail going, full body wiggle, trying to climb into the lap. No hesitation, no vetting process, just instant best friend, which is adorable, right up until you think about it for 5 seconds. Because that means your dog would happily walk off with literally anyone. Someone in a park reaches down, gives them a scratch behind the ears, maybe a treat, and your Cavalier is basically ready to go home with them. No fuss, no fight. They don't even glance back at you. They just go. And this isn't theoretical. Cavaliers are one of the most stolen breeds out there. They're small enough to grab and friendly enough that they won't make a scene. Plus, they cost, $2 to $4 grand from a decent breeder, so there's actual financial incentive to take one. You've got a dog with a golden retriever's personality crammed into a 14-pound body and zero instinct to question strangers. I kind of love that about them. It's one of their best qualities, honestly, but you gotta know what you're signing up for. In 2008, the BBC aired a film called Pedigree Dogs Exposed, and it basically detonated the whole purebred dog world in the UK. But the segment that really gutted people, the one everyone remembers, was the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. They showed a neurologist, Claire Rusbridge, scanning Cavalier's skulls. And what she found was, it's hard to even describe without it sounding like horror fiction. The dog's skulls were too small for their brains. Literally. The brain was being squeezed out through the base of the skull. It's a condition called syringomyelia, and some of them were in constant screaming pain, scratching at the air near their heads because the pressure was so bad. And the kicker, the part that really made people furious, was that breeders knew. The show world knew. It had been documented in veterinary literature for years. Nobody changed anything. The breed standards stayed the same. The judges kept rewarding the same skull shape. After that documentary aired, the BBC pulled its coverage of Crufts. The Kennel Club scrambled to do damage control. There were rule changes, health screen pushes, a whole PR campaign about responsible breeding. And look, some of that helped. I'm not going to pretend none of it mattered. But if you talk to veterinary cardiologists and neurologists today, they'll tell you the breed is still in serious trouble. The documentary lit a fire. Whether it actually saved the breed, I don't know. I'm not convinced yet. You bring home a Cavalier puppy and you're thinking, okay, small dog, eager to please, people say they're easy. How hard can potty caning be? Hard. Genuinely, surprisingly hard. And I think the reason it catches people off guard is because Cavaliers are so agreeable about everything else. They want to be near you, they want to make you happy, they learn tricks fine, but something about bladder control just takes forever with this breed. 6 months is normal. 8 months isn't unusual. Some owners, and they'll tell you this quietly, almost embarrassed, are still dealing with accidents past a year. Part of it's physical. Small dog, small bladder, faster metabolism. They need to go out more often than people expect, like way more often, every 30 to 45 minutes for a young puppy. And if you miss that window, they're not going to hold it. They can't. But the other part is temperament. Cavaliers are sensitive, really sensitive. You raise your voice once over a puddle on the kitchen floor, and they don't think, oh, I shouldn't pee inside. They think, this person is scary now. And then they start hiding to pee, behind the couch, in the spare bedroom, somewhere you won't find it for 3 days. So you've got to be patient in a way that feels almost unreasonable. Calm, consistent, boringly repetitive. No shortcuts, no anger, just showing up with a treat every single time they get it right. Go look at paintings of King Charles Spaniels from the 1600s, the 1700s. Longer muzzles, flatter skulls. They looked like actual sporting spaniels, because that's what they were. Small ones, sure, but proportional, functional. Dogs that could breathe and, exist without their skeleton working against them. Now look at the modern breed standard. The domed skull, the flat face pushed in, the huge round eyes sitting almost too far forward. That's not how these dogs used to look. That's what show rings decided they should look like, and the dogs are paying for it. The syringomyelia I talked about, that's a direct result of breeding for a rounder, more compact skull. You make the skull smaller and more dome-shaped. The brain doesn't shrink to match. It's got nowhere to go. Fluid builds up in the spinal cord, and the dog suffers, sometimes quietly, sometimes screaming. Then there's mitral valve disease. This one's genetic too, and it's everywhere in the breed. Some studies, and these are peer-reviewed, not internet panic, suggest over 50% of Cavaliers have a heart murmur by age 5. By age 10, it's almost all of them. And the eyes, those big, gorgeous, expressive eyes everyone loves, they're shallow set, which means they're prone to ulcers, dry eye, infections. The thing people find cutest about the breed is kinda literally a design flaw. Nobody set out to hurt these dogs, but the result's the same. Look, I'm not telling you not to get one. That's not where I land on this. People love these dogs, and the dogs love people back. And that bond is real. It's not made up. Marketing didn't invent it. But, and this is the part nobody puts on the breeder website, if you bring one home, you are signing up for it. All of it. The MRI conversations, the cardiologist visits that become a normal Tuesday, a pill schedule that creeps up on you a year at a time until you're basically running a small pharmacy out of a kitchen drawer. The moment, somewhere down the line, where the vet uses the phrase quality of life, and you already know what they mean before they finish the sentence. That's the deal. That's what's on the table. And honestly, most people walk into it with no idea, because the marketing around this breed is it's relentless. It's the lapdog of kings thing, that little face in every painting. Nobody's writing a coffee table book about syringomyelia. The thing that actually bugs me, and I've been sitting with this, is that we're a few generations into knowing exactly what's wrong, and the breed standard hasn't really moved. The skull's still the wrong side, the heart's still ticking on a clock most dogs don't have to live by, and the people in charge of fixing it have been arguing about whether to fix it for, 20 years? Longer. So yeah, get one if you want one. They're worth it. I genuinely think they are. Just don't get one because somebody showed you a photo and said, aren't they sweet? They are sweet. That part's true. It's everything underneath the sweet that nobody's telling you about. And if you already have one, honestly, you probably know all this. You're the one living it. You don't need me to explain it. You're just glad somebody finally said it out loud.